What's up, everybody? We are back. John Della Rose here, the leading Hispanic voice in science fiction. And we are continuing our journey through the strange history of Supergirl. I say strange because there's nothing normal about this character. There seems to be no definitive status of the character. There seems to be no definitive direction for the character. And every incarnation just is wildly different than the last, which is unusual for a character who has this long of a history. Usually those end up being pretty respected, but given the nature of Supergirl, again, I'll kind of go over the history that gets us up to this volume right here, the Volume 1, The Girl of Steel, written by Jeff Loeb and Joe Kelly, and Greg Rucka, too, actually, even though his name's not on here. Drawn by Ian Churchill for the most part. But Supergirl started as a Silver Age character in backup adventures for Superman. She got her own series in the 70s that lasted 10 issues, and then she got her own series in the 80s that lasted 20... I don't remember, was it 23 issues or 21 issues? Somewhere in there. It was going to be rebooted, and we did a review of Paul Kupperberg's reboot script, which he turned in but did not get made. And then Crisis happened, and they decided to kill off Supergirl. That lasted until the late 80s when they brought this alternate world Supergirl back, who we called Matrix. Matrix ended up in the Superman title as kind of a backup character for a while and started dating Lex Luthor, didn't know what was going on. Eventually, she got her own miniseries in which she found out Lex Luthor's actually a bad guy. Shocker. And ditched him. And then Peter David started this series which took that character in a wildly different direction, turned it into basically a different character altogether. Had very little to do with Supergirl other than the fact that she wore the S in the name. And we read through that, and it was actually very good. And that got canceled, and then Jeff Loeb decided to bring her back as Kara Zor-El proper. And this is about 2003 at this point. And did so in the Batman Superman title, which we reviewed last week. You guys can go find that. That brings us to her title here. And we have a nice collected edition version, which are these... They're not all the way like large, thick trades, but they are about 2 trades worth of information and books in here. And this one actually covers issues 0 through 10 and number 12. I'm not sure why issue 11 is skipped, but it is. I'll have to look into that and see if the other volumes have it. This series gets collected for the most part, and it goes up to about issue 50 through 4 volumes of this. And then there's a couple issues skipped later, and then there's a regular trade that kind of does the next part of it, and then it kind of stops. So it's kind of a weird hodgepodge of collections. I like this format from DC. I actually almost prefer this size to the bigger thick trades. The bigger thick trades kind of offer a little more value, but that's it. So we get into this, and right away we have some beautiful Michael Turner art for covers and all that. We get into the 0 issue where Batman and Superman, it's a Batman Superman that kind of features her, and they're just curious about her, and they want to test her to see if she, whoops, sorry about that, see if she is a, good person or whatnot. So that's that, and it ends with Lex Luthor, vowing to come after her, basically. Now this is a sort of homage cover to the old Supergirls for the first issue, and we get into her origin, and we get into Jeff Loeb's writing. And I actually complained on social media about Jeff Loeb's writing, and it's because I've read a lot of it lately. I read the Hulk omnibus that he did with Ed McGuinness, and I noticed when he introduces a new character, like he did with Red Hulk, he ran the exact same storyline that he's doing with Kara Zor-El in Supergirl. And that is, he spends an issue pitting her against the JSA, then the next issue he spends pitting her against the Titans, then the next issue he spends pitting her against the Outsiders, and then it pits her against Lex Luthor finally. And so you have her fighting heroes and then fighting villains as like sort of a gauntlet. And that's exactly what I read in the Red Hulk thing. Red Hulk did the same thing. He fought X-Force, and he fought the Defenders, and etc. And he actually stretched it out a lot longer in Red Hulk. Like, those weren't single issues. So those went for full arcs of different fighting. But there's really little to the storylines here. These are very popcorn stories that, there's not even that much character development for her in the first few issues. She exists and, she's fighting. And I like Ian Churchill's art a lot, I gotta say. Just absolutely stunningly beautiful figures and nice art and all that. It's a little silly cheesecake how they draw her boobs, and a little overly sexualized, I guess, which is kind of weird because they keep repeating how the character's 15, and yeah. But they always then follow it up with but she's not really 15. Yeah, it's very bizarre. But whatever. Very nice characters. I mean, look at the Robin there. That's just awesome looking. So yeah, nothing much happens in those first 3 issues. She just runs a gauntlet of all these characters. They run her up against Power Girl for a bit, because Power Girl also is Superman's cousin from another reality or something like that. Very odd stuff. And then they can't exist together for reasons. Now, this is eventually leading to Lex Luthor, who is getting her in a spot where he wants to fight her. And the Titans drop her off. It's very bizarre. Or the Outsiders drop her off, I guess. And they let her go fight Lex Luthor by herself. And she asks for that, and they allow that. And that's just a foolish thing that's for the sake of the plot. Lex Luthor hits her with this magical black kryptonite, and she becomes Bad Girl Supergirl. And then she says she's going to kill Lex at the end of it, fights him, kicks the crap out of him, and then ends up having Bad Girl Supergirl fight the Justice League. So again, back to the gauntlet again, just like the other one. And then the original kind of shows up, and I don't know how she got split off or whatever. It's not very well defined. But they fight here, and they deal with their whole deal. And then we get to the other reason I don't like Loeb's writing very much. So Loeb has all this random fights that really don't mean much. Runs it through the gauntlet just as a way to have all these guest star characters in here, I guess, to promote the book. That's what it seems like, and that's what Red Hulk seemed like also. And then once she gets to the end of it, she has Wonder Woman or Wonder Girl or whatnot wrap a lasso around her and the evil Supergirl, and for some reason it combines them back into one person. And here's what just drives me crazy about his writing, is that there's this build-up that's so big, and then it seems like he always does this how do I phrase this? He always does this wrap up that's oh, by the way, it's over now. And it's always a weird thing that doesn't quite make sense or pan out, and it's just snap and it's over because we got to end the trade paperback. And that's what Loeb's writing feels like to me. This is the natural end for the trade paperback, so we better wrap it up real quick. I didn't really have a good ending, so we're just going to end it, and she's going to be back to herself. And of course, since none of that mattered and needed to happen. Now he gets off the book, and Loeb's off the book at this point, and we get into Joe Kelly's writing immediately, and it goes in a wildly different direction. I'm sorry, Greg Rucka wrote this one. And Joe Kelly wraps up. I don't know what they were doing with this, if this was just going to be a fill-in or whatnot, because they have Ed Benes doing the penciling on this one. Ian Churchill does do the second one of this next story, and then another guest penciler comes in for Ian Churchill on this third one. I guess to allow him some time to catch up, I guess. But this felt like a Elseworlds miniseries, and they're in this city called Kandor, where Superman's this bad despot tyrant or whatever, and Power Girl is with Kara Zor-El, even though it was decided that she could not actually spend time with Kara Zor-El because of reasons in the second or third issue of that last thing. So it directly contradicts that continuity there. And all these characters show up, and we're in this weird world. It doesn't tell us how she got there until much later, until about the third issue. You get little glimpses of it, but it's really not as a background, as a backstory sort of thing, but it's really not done very well on this level. And so we have this Elseworld story, which just like totally ignores what went on before. Kara's really depressed. She becomes very weird in this alternate future. Gets a tattoo. You see just like the angry shower scene, bizarre stuff. Didn't feel very good. Didn't feel very Supergirl. Is what I got to say on this. Of course, I love the art, even the fill-in pencils of all the different pages. Art's so pretty, but art does not make a comic book, unfortunately. And even though this has a pretty wild and interesting storyline to it, very cheesecake, as you can tell. It's like, that's not what I wanted out of Supergirl. I don't want her to be a, come on. I don't think anybody wants that. But, yeah, even the fill-in art's good, but art does not make a story, and that's what this comes down to. And so this was very thinly set up, and eventually Kara lets the tyrant succeed and goes back home because they gave her information on what happened to her home city of Argo City, so she could get back to it. So very non-heroic ending. I hate that when the heroes do bad things, because I just feel like that's, again, not a very Supergirl thing to do. It's just very out of character, even though they haven't really established the character, I guess, and that's the deal. It just felt wrong and bad. So, and it ends right there, and then again it just switches tones completely, and she's just hanging out, looking like a hipster, and then we get into a slice of life stuff. So this one attempts to reconcile a little bit of the last 3 issues, and Joe Kelly kind of wraps that up. You can tell Joe Kelly is like, I don't think he really even wanted any part of that storyline, because he just is like, nope, we're not doing that anymore. And then Kara kind of runs around depressed and going to bars and stuff like that and making weird sexualized comments. It's just didn't work out. As much as I love all the pencils and everything, the colors look nice. It's just didn't work out. And so that's that. And then it shifts gears 100% again. So we're in like we have our first gauntlet, which Jeff Loeb kind of left just a mess, which didn't have any background characters. It didn't have any supporting characters. Didn't have any setting, really. Didn't have any like purpose for the character, and just left. And then we had this weird Elseworlds thing where the characters were not very heroic or interesting. Then we kind of have the wrap-up of that sets her back where she's just kind of running around hapless. And then she decides she wants to get a secret identity and become a high school girl after the weird, all this stuff. So she dresses up like a high school girl. There's like this weird high school hazing stuff that goes on. She hates it. This is totally slice of life. There's no super heroics going on in this at all. And she, at the end, reveals she's Supergirl and says, "You guys suck. I'm out." And that's it. And that's Ian Churchill's. That's issue number 10. So issue number 11, again, we don't even know what happened in issue number 11. It's not collected in here. But issue number 12 then goes up, and it's Jimmy Palmiotti, writing over Amanda Connor's art, which is drastically a different style, very cartoony compared to Ian Churchill's. And I don't like it that much, honestly. I feel like these are some stiff poses that don't look all that great. I don't like the big thick lines all around the characters. I think it's distracting. I mean, I don't like the faces in a lot of the panels, body structures in a lot of the panels. I don't know. Not my thing. So, and I don't mind cartoony art from time to time. It's just, this just didn't work out. And so she's clubbing and has to fight this dinosaur monster. And she has like another superhero she kind of meets in that. And then she goes back to Boomer, I guess, who she's semi-dating or something like that. And they have long couch discussions. So, a very weird issue that is amongst a bunch of other weird issues, and none of it really worked out. So, I don't know. This feels like a directionless, rudderless book, is what it comes down to. And they didn't know where to go with it, so they just have different writers come in, give their takes. They don't really match up. They don't really push the character forward whatsoever. And it just wasn't very fun overall. So, love Ian Churchill's art. I guess that saves it a little bit, but it doesn't save it enough for this to be a better book. And so I got to call this like a 6 out of 10 because overall, just not super worth the read. Now, there are other volumes of this, and apparently it gets better later on when Sterling Gates takes over things as writer, so we'll see what happens and continue on our journey with Supergirl. Of course, hit that like and subscribe button, and we will be back soon.